everyone, welcome to another video with me, Jason. Today we're going to be talking about the Garmin Fenix 7X. So first off, I would like to talk about the fit and the style of this watch. To begin with, it is a very big watch. If you have a smaller wrist, it probably would look quite big on your wrist. I don't necessarily have big wrists. I would say they're medium size, even for a guy of my height at 6'4". But it's still a big watch. I wouldn't say it's so big. I've never had one comment ever saying that, wow, that's a big watch. Normally when a watch is too big, someone will say, that's a big watch. I've never had one comment on it. So I think even the X is perfect size for me. Why don't we start here having a look at the dimensions of the watch itself. So when I was looking for the X here, a lot of people were wearing the watch and they were measuring their wrists and stuff, but I didn't see a good view of the watch on the wrists. And the second thing, they only measured the diameter of the watch rather than also the length of these bits where they hold the straps themselves. So I wanted to just give that to you, which might help if you're interested in buying this. So if we look at the length from here, so right there I've got 57 millimeters from bottom to top. So if you want to measure your own wrist, that should help quite a lot. Then if we have a look at my wrist here itself, where I wear the watch, so I am just about 57 millimeters there as well, so it's kind of bang on for me, just about. In terms of the diameter of my wrist itself is 176 millimeters, so I have quite a flatter wrist and a wider wrist. Some people have a more circular wrist, so bear that in mind. Even if you have the same diameter, it might not be as flat as my wrist is. With the watch square on, I find that in cameras and videos, the watch face tends to look bigger than the wrist itself, but in person it's perfectly square with the edges here going square down with my wrist. The actual strap of the watch itself, so this one I replaced with just a £15 one from Amazon. It was cheap, you can find loads of them. Seems to be pretty robust and reliable so far. I've had it on for 3 months, so it's a good sign. There's no signs of wear and tear. But the actual 25mm wrist strap itself, it seems quite wide at first, and for the first 4 days I was wearing this watch strap, I actually had a little bit of irritation, and it wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world. But actually after 4 days, more than used to it, never had a problem since. Basically forgotten that it's there most of the time until you need to use it as the watch itself. If you are a smaller build, so I have a bit more of a swimmer's build, becoming more of a cyclist build now, but if you're more of a runner and you have a smaller wrist, I wouldn't recommend this watch. I would just go down to the normal Fenix 7. The main things that I use this watch for are for running, cycling and swimming. So I use them to track most of that for me, and I also use it for sleeping, tracking my sleep, and finally I use it for gym work as well, just to record the stuff that I do in the gym. So to begin with, why don't we start with sleep? Now, when it comes to sleep on this watch, I must say there's one part that is really accurate, and that is when you fall asleep and when you wake up. It is bang on the minute you fall asleep and it's bang on the minute that you wake up from your sleep. It knows that very well. All of the information in between, ignore it. That's what I found. You could have had the best night's sleep ever and it will say you've had no deep sleep. Or you could have been dreaming all night and it will say you've had no REM sleep. So in terms of tracking that, I don't think it's the best. Just look at literally the time. That's what I use it for. I think I've put this down to the respiration with my sleep. So I normally have about 12 to 13 breaths per minute when I'm sleeping. And I think because it's quite consistent for me, it seems to be. As soon as my breathing rate comes from 12 to 13, which isn't really much of a jump, I think it then starts to skew the data and it struggles a little bit more. I'm not sure how it brings heart rate into that as well, but like I said, for me, I just like the duration of sleep. And sometimes I even ignore how much awake time that I've had because I know I wasn't awake for 40 minutes or an hour, for example. Let's talk about when I'm running with the watch. So when I'm running, I find that It's not heavy at all, really. I think if it was any bigger, it probably would be too heavy, but actually, I've never really thought about it when I'm running. It's just there for good data, and in fact, I like the bigger screen, so it's easier to see the data when you are running. One thing I've always found with some older watches is that when you're running under trees, your speed or your pace tends to drop off, normally by about 30 seconds a kilometre I found. I don't know if Garmin takes this into account afterwards, but I've definitely found with the older watches this is a problem. With this one, it still happens when you initially go under some dense trees or into a forest, but I find that it actually finds itself quite quickly again and your pace starts to come back to what you were doing before. Let's talk about use in the gym. So I use this in the gym as well when I'm squatting, doing my deadlifts, literally anything. And I find that it does work. It picks up most basic movements. So for example, if you're doing a barbell squat with a bar on your back, or you're doing a deadlift, or a bench press, it will pick up these movements for you and it will automatically enter it into the data screens for you. So it makes it a bit easier, a bit quicker if you like to fill it all in. I'm not overly bothered about filling it all in, but some people are a bit more pedantic about their gym work than I am. When it comes to counting the repetitions, I find that it gets semi-close. For example, if you're doing 8 repetitions, it will usually be plus or minus 2. So might say 7, might say 10 repetitions, even when you've only done 8. But when you go into the watch afterwards and you click finish set, I find that it's actually really easy, really quick to swap out how many repetitions you've done, and it's quite good for that. And at the same time, it's also very quick to enter the amount of kilos, so if you've changed or upped your weight or decreased your weight, it's very quick and easy to enter that into the watch at the time. When it comes to using the actual application on Garmin, it has pretty much every exercise you could ever want on there, so it's easy just to have a quick search at the top of the bar, click whichever exercise you want to put in. You can change the weight, you can change the reps, so if you want to make it more specific on the application itself, you can do that. The one thing I like the most about using the watch in the gym is actually it counts the rest periods for you. So I like to have on the screen that just shows your heart rate and how much rest that you've had, and that's what I like. It helps make my sets more specific. And all you have to do is literally hit the lap button or the back button here, and it will swap to say that you're on a set or you're not on a set. Cycling. I use this mainly for commuting, otherwise I would normally use my cycling computer, the Garmin 1030 Edge. But like I said, I only use this when I'm commuting, so it's easy just to click go on the watch and go for my cycle basically. I find the downfalls of when you're cycling using the watch is that you kind of have to look at it if you want to check your speed or your heart rate and things like that. But overall, it's not really much of a problem. It's a really big screen face, so you won't have a problem seeing it at all. One area where it suffers a little bit more, I find, is when you stop and start. So when you come up to a traffic light, you stop. It takes about 4 or 5 seconds to know that you've stopped. I think it does it just in case, but it takes 4 or 5 seconds, even though I have it set to auto pause under 5 kilometers an hour. When you pull off again, it's very accurate when you pull off. It knows exactly when you've pulled off. It buzzes at you again, it vibrates and it says we're going again. It carries on playing your cycle. In terms of the speed, how it tracks your speed, I find this is really accurate from the watch. I find I look down, I get a really responsive speed reading, and I think that's testament to the quality of how well it connects to satellites. Let's talk about its use for swimming. So I do most of my swimming within the pool, and I find that for counting the laps, it's really good. Like, because it's got such a big screen, it's so easy to see how much distance I've done, especially when you're doing bigger sets, 1, 2, 3 kilometers, and you're just doing 1 kilometer at a time. It's easy for your mind to wander and you forget how much distance you've done. Just whilst I'm turning, I have a quick glance, the screen lights up, you push off, you know exactly what distance you've done, you know your average pace, and I think it's perfect for that. In terms of the heart rate tracking when you are swimming, I'm not so sure how accurate it is. I've never compared it to a heart rate strap while swimming, so it's hard for me to give good data on that, but I think it's pretty close. It seems to, the area where the watch face sits on and the heart rate monitor sits on, it seems to be relatively sealed off, and I think it would give close data or accurate data on your swimming heart rate. The only downside from using this in the pool, I found, this only happened for a couple of weeks or so, and it seems to have gone quiet again now, but where the straps connect to on the quick connectors, when you move the straps, it used to get squeaky for a little bit, but like I said, this was only for a short amount of time. When I moved them now, they're quiet again. I just used a bit of WD-40 on there, but there is a downside to only having these quick connectors, because you can take these off, but you can't take the actual pin off itself, so you cannot replace the pin on the Garmin Fenix 7X. Let's talk about the battery life. So the battery life on this watch is unbelievable. When you charge it up, it says it's got 26 days, and that's if you weren't using any GPS or using it through your running or your cycling or your swimming. When you do use that, I find I still get 21, 22 days, which really is more than enough use from a watch, especially when you go on holiday. For example, I was in Italy for 10 days, charged up before I went, and literally didn't have to worry about the battery once. It's charged, you're done, you can go on holiday and come back without even thinking about it and have time to spare. In terms of the solar, so I think for the UK, it's a bit less useful, especially considering that we don't get too much sun. I also believe that on the watch face itself, they could have possibly put the numbers on the solar ring itself and maybe expanded the size of the watch face, or potentially expanded the size of the outer ring that we have on here, because that maybe we've got some more surface area on the stronger solar panels on the outer ring. In terms of looking at the outer ring itself, you never really notice it unless you look for it. Especially specifically, you can see it now, but like I said, when you use it in normal use, you don't think about it at all. The touchscreen. I think the touchscreen on this watch is really, really good, I must say. So there's certain areas, for example, when you're going down through your widgets here, you can just swipe down, it's super quick, it's super easy, you can select the one that you want. It's also nice when you're on the data screen just to press and hold, and then you can go straight to those data screens, straight from the watch face. I find that to be very, very useful. And this is something that I think people on the Fenix 6 are actually missing out on. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't need it, but actually it makes the usability of the watch much, much faster. In terms of its responsiveness, it's not epic like an Apple Watch is, where it's smooth, it's fluid, it's very, very responsive. There's a little bit of a lag to it, but to be honest, the actual use of it is not enough for it to bother you at all. It's only if you compared them back to back that you would notice the difference. When you're actually in use, it's still very predictable, very easy to find the area that you want and click on it, and it responds really quickly still. I also really like the extra features, for example, using the quick buttons. So with the quick buttons, you can just press and hold certain buttons, or press and hold a few buttons together, and it will take you straight to things such as paying for things with your watch, or going straight to your music. If your phone's in your pocket or next door, you can still control it from your watch here. And one thing that I've used quite a lot is the Find My Phone feature. So I've got an iPhone, even with a Garmin watch, you can go into the settings, press Find My Phone, and it will ring your phone for you, which is very, very useful. In terms of new features, so on the 955 Forerunner new watch, they have things such as heart rate variability, nighttime heart rate variability, and readiness to train. These aren't yet on this watch. I would assume that they are going to be introduced fairly soon, so look out for that, and I think there'll be nice features just to see. There's other features such as the stamina feature that I use when I'm running. Well, I say I use it, I don't use it. It has it, I don't find it's that useful. I feel like you can just feel if you've got more stamina left and stuff, so I've never really got to the point, even during a marathon, where the stamina features run out before, but I've managed to keep on feeling just fine towards the end of the marathon, so I don't think the stamina feature is that useful for me personally. It's really nice to be able to set up the data screens on your phone, but you only need to do this once. I found once I've got the data screens that I wanted for my swimming, for my running, It's a set and forget kind of thing. So it is easier to do on the phone now, but you only need to do it once. There is one feature that I do really use a lot, and I've heard a lot of other reviewers say this, and it is the flashlight feature, where you double click and you've got your flashlight come up. When going around at night, you're just going to go up to the bathroom, you don't have to pick up and fumble around for your phone, you just double click, use it, go to the bathroom, come back, turn it off, job done. It's a lot more useful than you think it is. Even in the day, if you've got a dark bag and you want to rummage around the dark bag, it's perfect for that as well. It's one of those features that you think's a bit of a gimmick, but it's really useful. There's one extra thing that does happen to me, I would say once a month at the moment, is sometimes the screen face will freeze. You can't swipe or anything. The only thing that I've been able to do to get it to come back to normal is to reset the watch itself and then get it to come back on. It doesn't really matter that much, but I've had to do it 2 times now and I don't really like it. I'm not sure if they'll update this in a future update, but it has happened twice. Apart from that, it works perfectly, it works smoothly, 99.9% of the time, so I could highly recommend this watch. As far as watches go, it is the daddy, it's the best you can get. It's got far more than any sports you'll ever need on there, but the option's there if you want it. This has been my long-term review of the Garmin Fenix 7X. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful, and leave a comment down below if you have any other questions. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.